Bouncers versus switchboard operators and the collapse of the global labor market. Why economic repair won't come from employers or the employed, but the job-seeking labor force their neglect has been crushing. Hi, my name is Sarah Trumbull. I'm the founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective, first anonymous user reviews for job ads across the U.S. Think of it like Yelp in a world of professionally mandated fine dining with no health department, no FDA, and really no one asking you, what do you like to eat? You know? This is a level of go-to-market awareness for the paradigm shift that I'm pushing, which is rather big. So you want to meet people in a variety of spaces. This comes from my Substack, which is a written blog post that comes out and goes to journalists, economists, sociologists, systems theorists. I have an information theorist that kind of checked it out the other day, which is fun for me. I'm adding to my collection on different academic types, which is always an excellent sign when you're trying to grab traction. But is just trying to meet people more where they're at too, because it's academic, but also not. And so I'm trying to be present in audio format as well as video format. So, and also just public awareness for all the gaslighting out there. So, I'm going to start from the beginning. Again, we're talking about the online labor market. Picture this. You walk into De Beers to buy an engagement ring. Instead of elegance and sparkle, you find a rustic hunting lodge, flannel everywhere, mounted animal heads on the wall, and an ornery, tough-looking man in plaid polishing rings like he resents them. When you mention it seems slow, he side-eyes your girlfriend and grunts, no one wants to get married anymore. Absurd, right? It would be if De Beers had somehow forgotten what kind of market it exists in. Yet in the global labor market, the same structural blindness is standard operating procedure. And cultural traditions mean not knowing the hiring experience. Cultural traditions around not knowing the hiring experience means no one running or operating this market can see the market collapse happening in plain sight. Who this is for? This is the opposite of a job seeker problem. It is a system-wide fracture at the heart of the global economy and multiple national economies. Workers, ghost jobs, broken signals, algorithmic silence, employers paying for visibility while drowning in noise, recruiters and HR metrics that hide structural failure, educators, credentials that no longer guarantee access, policymakers, models built on corrupted hiring data, communities, instability when work and dignity collapse. If your world depends on people accessing work, this includes you. Core thesis. The global labor market is a textbook case of Akerlof's market for lemons and has been for a decade at least. How is this profitable? All online markets profit from engagement, not solutions. Ghost jobs function as all clickbait does, an engagement trap. The market conditions, billions of users that cannot opt out or risk homelessness. SaaS and platform as a service style usage of the service where usage is profit, but not resolution is profit. A cultural standard of professionalism where not knowing, not listening, and not understanding the UX of market profit drivers, aka job-seeking users, is professionalism. An entirely opaque algorithms, untested technological experience with user experience insight and info actively suppressed by social and professional and financial norms. Then not only is global labor market collapse entirely plausible, it's inevitable mathematically with these conditions from a systems theory or cybernetics or game theory standpoint. So how is it invisible to those with the power to stop it? That's the topic of this essay. Why no one sees it. Number one, employers, boyfriends who slowly normalize De Beers becoming a man cave. Employers have been trained not to question the hiring process at all. That was the market standard for 100 years. In a global market, they expect vendors will fix problems and trust platforms to find the best candidate because there's a million applicants out there, right? You can see how this version of De Beers developed in seeing how employers have responded to growing market dysfunction. As noise in the market grew, employers turned predictably to the same actors every time: business power players, academia, public policy experts. And see if you can spot the slip, because the market distortion is already present in this thinking. I have trained myself to notice. It's literally my business, and it still catches me. Behavioral conditioning is a beast. Shift the frame and try this instead. If restaurant attendants suddenly got erratic, who would you ask? People who buy gift cards? Other people who own restaurants? The FDA, the health department, and academics? Or the people whose eating habits have changed? If Disney saw erratic drops in park attendance, who would they interview? Parents dealing with park hours and ride schedules? Theme park owners and nearby businesses? Theme park historians and former employees? Or the kids the park actually exists to delight? In any functional two-sided market, your answer is always group 4, with maybe some insight from groups 1, 2, or 3. Roche and Thoreau were not confusing about the importance of end users in a two-sided market. But in the online labor market, a market that affects national economies across the globe, it is never group 4, the people whose behavior is actually changing. Because we've built an entire culture around the idea that professionalism means job seekers must not speak. Why are we violating economic first principles in such a foundational market of all of the economies? My hypothesis is that in training ourselves to professionally never talk about hiring processes, we actually train ourselves to never think about them. Or rather, we still think about them, but we perform a category error where we flip to thinking about them only from the employer's point of view. Are people aware, being complacent, or acting with malice? Sure. Some people are always doing that everywhere. They do. But the pervasive nature of this error speaks to me almost to the nature of human cognition. Half of my empathy relates to my own way of thinking. This is my business. I have spent 5 intense years on this study, and I actively work on this, and I still slip. Follow up on this: emergence via incentive structure versus malice of intention. Think about this from another perspective. Teenagers don't generally attempt to make dirty rooms. It's not like a life goal of theirs. But they often just fail to clean them up regularly. If it's easier not to do it, if it's social tradition for people to not look and not care, and it allows you to get paid more to not clean it up, then why would you? And that is how an entire labor market collapses in plain sight, without feedback, without a neutral platform, and without the people driving it even realizing what they've broken. Let's take another actor here: public policy and academia. More linguists than grammar teachers. So I used to imagine policymakers and economists as high school grammar teachers, enforcing clear rules that come from some mythic land of certainty. Naivety strikes all of us. I didn't know. I know better. In reality, they operate much more like linguists. They observe patterns, they describe emergent structures, they document what is, not what should be. And they are also structurally detached from the people inside the market. When the global labor market moved online, policymakers were thrown into an uncharted digital landscape, and their attention was pulled towards the most visible digital dangers: fraud, trafficking, and identity theft. Against threats like these, ghost jobs don't read as evidence of cybernetic failure growing. They read as a footnote, a curiosity, not a crisis. Academics, meanwhile, see the disturbing patterns emerging, but they lack the power to intervene. They are trained to stay analytically distant from market actors, and they carry an unspoken cultural assumption as well that job seekers are unreliable narrators. I've spoken to this before, but it's that job seekers can't be trusted, so we can't trust job seekers, so they don't need a trust layer in a market that, uses their time for profit. This is a flawed logical fallacy. situation sitting there that's real problematic. But think about it in a practical way. It's not about what should be, it's about what is. With the experts being top-tier professionals, trained never to discuss the hiring experience and therefore trained to see it only through employer-centric lenses, we accidentally conditioned entire academic and policy fields to never even imagine the true impact of hiring intermediaries on economic stability, civic integrity, and democratic institutions. Let's talk about the main players here too. Job market vendors, switchboard operators who think they are bouncers. When hiring moved online, job market operators inherited the employer's worldview instead of a newspaper's function. And in doing so, the entire industry lost the plot. Their job was supposed to be simple: connect employers with reliably imperfect humans, create clarity, flow, and thus trust. But the internet made the world feel infinite. So platforms adopted a new identity. We're here to find the perfect candidate. Instead of communication and connection, they fell into curation and categorization. And that identity shift is what broke the labor market, because curation is not their job. Filtering is not their job. It's the De Beers absurdity all over again. Instead of creating rings and jewelry that girlfriends actually love, they decided to start screening out girlfriends they deemed not wife material. And in acting like bouncers, they created a $100 billion market centered around employer comfort and identity, but not labor market functionality. Platforms chose the wrong market category, and everything downstream reflects that error. Job seekers aren't people they have any reason to build trust with, because neither the public, nor public policy, nor academia, nor journalists, nor employers require it. All of these actors, being good professionals, look away. They don't think to address job seeker needs because they didn't see job seekers as users. They saw them as raw material. And in neglecting the user experience of 95% of the market, the talent industry created shelves of empty cereal boxes in a global supermarket that impacts billions of hungry people's ability to eat. Literally billions of people are impacted by this marketplace. And there's shelves of empty cereal boxes in a market that makes more money the longer they stay hungry. Rampant spam, labor fraud, and identity theft vectors. LinkedIn makes more money by scammers existing when job seekers can't opt out, and employers, the public, academia, and journalists are so unable to do anything but look away. Algorithmic quicksand that traps qualified applicants. A decade plus of George Akerlof's Lemons Market sitting at the base and foundation of the global economy, eroding the civic, democratic, and economic stability of every last national economy it touches. The talent industry cannot see job seekers because they cannot see themselves. Platforms became bouncers in a market that only works if they remain switchboard operators. And everything downstream is a consequence of that single category error. Now, I've spoken to the job seeker experience enough on my blog posts that I don't think I need to belabor it. I won't follow up with why they don't see it or the public don't see it. I think the public don't see it because it's like me not knowing the latest about cancer medications. I don't know it because I'm public. I can't know everything, So I just trust the experts. But in this case, the experts are precisely the people that wouldn't see because of what professionalism is. Core thesis revisited, and job seekers would see. They have seen. They've been speaking about it for a decade plus. They've created whole Reddit forums around this, and their voices, millions of users, been actively invalidated every last time. The others just can't even imagine a world where their experience should matter, where their insight should matter. Core thesis revisited. This is a cybernetic collapse, a system that has lost the ability to process feedback, adapt, or see itself clearly. Platforms optimize exclusively for the employer experience. This is the market tell for a $1 trillion ongoing vendor failure. Job seekers, the end users in a two-sided market, have no voice, no feedback mechanism, no way to signal when postings are fake, even to each other, and processes are broken or their time is being wasted, let alone to employers, even to each other. Of course, we have a $100 billion global market in collapse. There was never a reality where a two-sided market created with this structure would ever succeed. No one can see this clearly because everyone is operating from cultural tradition around professionalism and incomplete information. To be honest, I think of it more as a failure of imagination. They can't even imagine a world where the insight and experience and user experience of the end users in this two-sided market should matter at all. And in and of itself, that lack of ability to imagine it should be an alarming red flag. Because if you can't even imagine a world where what they need should matter, you've already admitted that it's been created, like the market is collapsing. Has been. Employers think platforms work, so they keep paying. Platforms think they work, so revenue is up. Policymakers see applicant volume and miss that applications mean nothing if they vanish into voids. And job seekers who are desperate don't have time to integrate what is happening and perform to stay afloat. The fix, though, it isn't about blaming any single actor. Here's the thing. Blame feels powerful and righteous, but its function is disguised complacency. It's outsourced agency, and therefore a return to complacency. It tells you that you didn't do anything wrong, which is emotionally comforting. And so you don't need to change anything because you didn't do anything wrong in the first place, which also the lack of need to change is emotionally and physically comforting. And it'll be the responsibility of the people over there who take care of the bad guys to solve it for you. Blame is not functional. It's complacent. It's disguised for me. Blame is not economic repair or triage. It is emotional peace and a return to norm. Empathy is the opposite. It is irritating because it requires a higher cognitive load and more effort. Connection requires the space for annoyance and curiosity, for frustration and understanding, and thus adaptation, aka repair. It doesn't outsource discernment, aka detachment, or outsource agency, aka blame, and thus requires accountability and attention. It requires connecting more. Because detachment is outsourced discernment. We've decided that this entire group cannot be trusted, and therefore we're only going to trust what everybody else says about this group, which is, again, still just outsourcing who gets to do the manipulation. Instead of this group getting to do it, now these groups get to do it, Whereas when you do discernment, you yourself actually have to keep monitoring yourself to keep making sure that you're deciding, because everybody can have a level of unconscious even manipulation. Sorry, philosophical too much. But empathy and connection create innovation in the process. And we desperately need to repair something here. Feeling your feelings is great. It is. It's a beautiful thing. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be furious. You're allowed to be ashamed. You're allowed to be embarrassed. You're allowed to be all the things because you're a human. And that's how humans feel. That's like saying you have emotions is like saying you have blood in your body. It's not a sense of weakness. It's being alive, period. Congratulations, you're alive. It's good. It's a good thing. But feeling your feelings is great. But blame and detachment are the trap. Here's the real truth. Not a one of us are anything but human in this play. When employers keep paying for platforms that don't work, it's not stupidity. It's that they don't see the signal. When journalists, public policy, or academia don't imagine what's happening, it's not malice. It's the training that we gave them in what professionalism is playing out. When platforms optimize for engagement and screening, it's not evil, it's miscategorization of the market role and no one able to tell them because of professionalism. When job seekers spam 400 applications or give up altogether, It's not laziness, it's a rational response to opacity. The pragmatic economic fix is about restoring the missing signal, giving the 95% a mechanism to report what they experience the same way every other functional two-sided market does. The job applicant perspective. Here's what job seekers need to make informed decisions. The same thing any buyer needs. They are purchasing job ads with their time. That's what they're doing. That's what they've always been doing. They need transparency about the end product that they're purchasing. What's the salary range? What are the benefits? Is this worth the time of investment? And talking about that time investment that they're making in the hiring process clarity. Will this application take 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 months, or never? Or be identity theft? Who knows? Right now, it's the worst version of choosing a movie to see because everything depends on you choosing the right movie, but there's absolutely no information available to you. Which platforms not process information, endgame information, all of it's just absolutely hidden. Follow-up, which platforms are being used when we're talking about processes? ATS systems function for job seekers. Again, try to stay in the frame of reference of job seekers. I know it's hard, but they function for job seekers like a payment gate. Their resume is like a credit card. The ATS machine is like a payment gate, the first step to actually being seen. So not knowing what payment gate they're looking at affects their ability to be seen. Also, it gives them no opportunity to not choose this type of payment gate and let employers know what works for them. Maybe my resume often gets through Greenhouse, but it doesn't get through Workday. Who knows what the algorithm is? Why am I not allowed to make that choice for myself? Why is it so important to keep that from me? Because it feels like it doesn't benefit employers, and it only really benefits the intermediaries, which doesn't benefit me, which means it also doesn't benefit employers. It's just a profit stream to not tell job seekers. It's definitely not profitable for job seekers, and it's not profitable for employers. Visibility into what they're dealing with. Is this a recruiting agency, a talent firm, a sub-recruiter? Who am I talking to? What's the reputation of that agency? And do I want to engage with this hiring process given that the employer has chosen to utilize these people? Here's a thought. If a job seeker doesn't want to apply at your company because you hired through a deco, use Greenhouse, or use Indeed, or otherwise, that's good for you to know. Maybe those aren't the job seekers for you, or maybe you want a different recruiting firm. It depends. But just because someone likes coffee and not tea doesn't make one better or one worse. It just gives you info as to what works for you. Opaque processes. This is the end game. If the process is opaque to job seekers, you are just hiring a slot machine for resumes. If your job seeking population doesn't know what they're looking at, you have created Vegas for resumes, which will always be less good for you and them. The solution for a complex market failure is breathtakingly simple. Let job seekers do what buyers do in every other functional market. Review their user experience, if not for employers, for each other. For each other. Anonymous user reviews of job postings create the missing feedback loop. They reveal which postings are real versus ghost jobs, which processes respect applicants' time, which recruiters and platforms deliver what they promise. This isn't new technology. It's Yelp for hiring morphing into Google Maps for the labor market. The same reputation system that makes eBay, Uber, and Airbnb work. At the job applicant perspective, we know that saving time for one actor saves money and time for the other in any two-sided market. That's what a two-sided market is. The profit is in the pain with one stakeholder. The profit is in the solution with two. I'm just saying. I put after this for some research links, also for my own stuff. These academically oriented white papers touch on much what I've referenced above. It's organized specifically around online hiring, plus some original economic theories of my own. Included also are breakdowns for how I see the interlocking trust architecture system developing with funding. I'm posting a paradigm shift, so I do a lot of if-then, if-thens. If I get the right funding, what would I do? Let people see what they're looking at. I think that you can't know what you're building until you can see the blueprints. So I make a lot of papers with the blueprints. In the end, and I put them on OSF, Zanito, and SSRN, paradigm restoration, not paradigm shift. The thing to realize is that up until hiring went online, the labor market actually did have two stakeholders. Newspapers lost money for misleading and mistreating the U.S. labor force. Since going online, the exact opposite has been true. Inefficiency has been profoundly profitable when user experience for job seekers suddenly didn't matter at all. It mattered in the newspaper era. User experience being bad for job-seeking users meant they lost money. User experience being non-existent for online users means it's profitable. We need the first type of market again. Yeah. The question isn't whether or not that De Beers absurdity is actually playing out. It's more, how could it not be with these market incentives and cultural traditions? Why wouldn't it? And if it isn't, if in the wild chance it's not yet currently, it will be eventually. And if it isn't in general, and it costs you nothing to know that, except putting a blurb on LinkedIn to send your job seekers that way, why wouldn't you want to know? Like, what would be the value of not knowing which vendors are actually working for you versus working you? Like, I'm just curious. Creating user reviews for job ads isn't so much about evaluating the relationship with employment. It's about evaluating the jewelry employers are purchasing to woo the labor market they seek to acquire. The global labor market doesn't need the silence of the labor force in the digital age. It desperately needs their professional voice. Market repair will come from job seekers doing what users do in every other functional marketplace, sharing what they experience. Anonymous reviews, real-time feedback, crowdsourced truth. Start with us. It's still my business. This is also marketing. Because really, though, the only thing stronger than a broken system is a population that refuses to navigate it blind. Thank you. Genuinely, I say that this is kind of already just staying higgly-piggly in the market as is, on Reddit sort of, with these anonymous forums, and kind of on LinkedIn too. So we're really just what LinkedIn already sort of has, but organized, and anonymous. And what Reddit already has, but we're a little better vetted because we don't just let everybody say anything, And so it's an MVP, but it is the solution. This is the only way. Two-sided markets cannot erase the end user's experience and succeed, period. This is not how it works. It's not how it works in systems theory, game theory, information theory, or economics, ever. So I feel like that's my drop. Pretty right. But either way, I hope you like, follow, and share. And obviously, just because I say things, you shouldn't just believe them. You should just discern it, falsify it, try to rebut the argument. Usually whenever someone starts to try to flatten a speaker instead of rebut the argument, I feel like it's being complimented. Like, oh, you couldn't rebut me, so you had to try to flatten me. When you defend something, but you don't rebut it, that's tends to be a compliment. Not always, but sometimes. Anyway, I'm digressing. Have a good one. Please stay sane out there. The world needs more sane people.